Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about production problems. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, you have started a new job with a large code base. The original authors are gone, documentation is sparse, and you have to fix a company production problem. What is your process for learning the code base and making the fix quickly? Well, it's pretty straightforward. I need to know where the website is. In other words, what's the hosting solution? And then I need to know how the code gets from my laptop out into the production environment. And then I need to know, well, not necessarily in this order, I need to know where the code is. So code first, where is it? How does it get from my laptop into the production environment, and where is that environment hosted? How do I get access to it? Is it running in pods like Kubernetes? Is it a VM? Is it is it a serverless thing? What am I dealing with? Once I know that, the fix is actually pretty like this idea that documentation is sparse. Like the thing that you are describing is usually, well, in some cases you have the authors, at least for some part of the code in the company, but this is sort of this is the thing that you as a software developer, you sort of have to understand this, guys, which is the reason why I also tell people that this idea that some software developers have that I'm just going to focus on one thing or another is bullshit. Like, it's never going to work for you practically, because the reality is that the company's needs is the thing that dictates what your responsibility is. And if you're unhappy with that, then you can basically not work in that specific company. And documentation being sparse, like there's also these people that I talk to sometimes where software developers who like think that there's this idea that, well, there's going to be that there is a way to fully document how to do things. There's not. There's no. I've had that with architects so many times, this discussion, and I've said to them the same thing when they come to like a new corporation, especially the big ones, where is there something that documents all our system? And I go, that's like asking for a overview of how an entire society works. Not at the same scale, but it is the same idea, that there is something that will give you perfect clarity into the situation. That's not going to happen at that scale. There is no corporation out there that's going to have like an overview of all their systems. It's ludicrous. Just the maintenance itself would take like several teams to just keep that up to date and so forth and so forth. Because the thing that I tell people that they do, which is so bad, is that there are these holistic picture type of characters who they can't get working without fully understanding everything around what they're going to do. They can't like just go into figure out that the core of an issue, like the thing that is going to get them further, like the next step in their learning process. They have to sort of have that step back and see everything before they can act. These people are useless in a situation like this, because, and this is what I tell software developers: if you are that sort of person, you're going to die. Like, as a software developer, you're never going to survive as a software developer. This mentality that you have to have is that you don't know all these things, like all the things about it. There's no way for you to know all the things. Then that's not important. What's important is to figure out which components, which elements do you right now have to understand in order to fix the problem short term. Because if you can short term solve it, then you can take more time later on and fully understand and like go from there. This is the only way you can act in these sorts of situation, and it is the thing that software developers have to master, because when you get thrown into a code base, a lot of how fast you're going to pick it up, it comes down to how good are you at basically just figuring out all the things you need to know in order to make a change confidently, like your own onboarding process, if you will. This is the thing that I have to do every single time I get into a team. Basically, I have to understand all the things and figure out all the things. And incidentally, I'm also usually responsible for making sure that other people have an easier time to do that. And as I said, the process is always the same. It's the same thing why I tell people, like this is exactly the same thing as when you're going to take your first story, and I tell juniors, don't try to read the whole code base. You will never understand it. I promise you, you will never understand it. It's simply, unless it's like a really small system, there's too much going on. There's no way. It's like saying that I'm going to become a doctor, not a doctor, but I'm going to go through a full-fledged education. Like, that's the reason why you can't just sit down, read one book on medicine, and then be like a surgeon. Because there's simply too much information, so you have to spend years and years and years and years to go through it all to really understand it. In many cases, it's very similar to how the situation you're facing right now. So that's why I tell people, learn the most important thing for the moment. So in my analogy with, say, medicine, if somebody's choking, you don't have to go and get a degree to figure out that it's probably a good idea to apply the Heimlich maneuver or something like that to unblock the windpipe. That's the thing you're going for, that mentality. Short-term fix the problem and learn from that short-term issue. And that's what I would do here. Literally, as soon as I know where the code is and as soon as I know how I get that code into the environment and how I can go into that environment, that's all I need to know. These are the only 3 things I need to fix a production issue, well, depending, of course, of this sort of, I mean, if it's a really bad, like if say it's not an application problem, let's say that it's really fun, something really fun, like with the infrastructure, say that the CDN or load balancer, or like there's a performance issue or something really nasty, then basically it comes down to the same thing. Then I don't really care. I'll still need to sort of figure out the code, because that's always the problem with performance issues. At what layer of the request is the problem happening? Like, is it at the edge? Is it in the within the DMC, or where? Is it at the application layer? Is it at the persistence layer, etc., etc.? But that's basically what it comes down to. So for me, this is like just another day at the office. It's going to be the same thing every single time you fix a bug in the system, you do anything. It really, and this is why I tell you, as a software developer, the most efficient thing that you can do in a situation like this is to apply the exact same thing I tell people when they're going into a new code base. Realize that it's not important to understand the whole code base to fix a problem. Identify the problem, the area of the problem that you have right now, and fix the here and now before you go into like this large scale stuff, because you're never going to survive if you try to wait for people to document things, because there's never going to be practically no documentation is going to be able to fix the problem that you're facing. So what I want you to take away from this is that not having original authors and having sparse documentation is like, it's just breakfast, guys. I have to this day never been into a single team where this was not the case, except for my own, because due to the fact that I see this as an issue, and I mean, I don't even document all the things. I document I've talked about that 100 times before, guys. Nobody's going to do that. It's down to you as a software developer to figure these sorts of things out, and that is why lifelong learning, being a rock star, being like a wider versus more narrow, etc., like all these things that I've been telling you in my videos, is a very important factor, because when the shit hits the fan, like in a situation like this, and somebody asks you to fix the issue, then literally you have to know, quote unquote, all the things that are relevant in order to debug where the issue is. And as I said, in a full stack, in an entire system, if you are alone, then you basically, it doesn't matter if you're a front-end developer or a back-end developer. Then if you are alone on this project, if you're the only person there, then you have to understand all the things, because otherwise you're not going to be able to fix the problem, and you don't have to necessarily take responsibility for that. That seems weird that the company and so forth provides you a situation where you can't really deal with the situation. But when you're at my level, for example, or when you work like I do, then that is literally what you have to do. You will have to draw upon all that experience that you gather from the various areas of IT that you've been working on, and then narrow down the scope of where the issue could be. It's the same thing I've told you about the debugging, guys. It's not important to read the whole code base when you have a bug that you can identify in a specific segment of the application. What's important in that situation is to figure out what's the shortest way I can get to figure out where the issue, how can I narrow down the scope? Where is the exact issue right now? Don't think about architecture, all this other stuff for the moment. Just figure out where is the scope, and then it's basically a binary search. Try to figure out where is the issue, identify the issue, fix the issue, and push it to production if you need to do these things sort of quickly. Because it's usually not a good idea to have long-term thinking or like be really into doing all the things in exactly the right way when you're in a crisis situation. You can do learning and you can do foresight and all of this good stuff that you should be thinking about architecture and like really understanding how everything works when it's not a crisis. But in a crisis situation, get to the root of the problem as quickly as humanly possible. Have a great day.